Hi folks, welcome to this video on goal setting. Fairly straightforward, I think, this topic. Setting ourselves goals, why is it important? Well, it gives us, we can direct our attention. We've got clear focus on what we need to achieve. If we know we've got a goal, it will increase our effort levels and we don't waste energy because we know what we need to get done. It increases our motivation because, again, we've got a clear target that we're aiming for. And it allows us to think about developing different strategies as well, different ways to achieve that goal. So it keeps it fresh. It keeps, with varied tactics, training methods, etc., etc. Now, as a result of all that, setting goals increases our self-confidence and it reduces our anxiety. We get worried because we don't know what we're aiming for, when we need to have it done by, what we're trying to achieve. As soon as you've got a goal, you've got a clear mind in terms of what needs to be achieved. When I come to work, I need to set out what I'm doing each week in my diary so that I know what I need to have done by the end of it. And even just writing it down, I feel better for having done it. I feel like, right, I know exactly what I need to do when I need to have it done by. Now, I bet you're all familiar with this. How do we set proper goals? Well, we use the SMART target principle. So S standing for specific, the goals must be clear. M standing for measurable. If we can measure things with numbers, that means it's objective, it's data driven. So we can measure how far are we off or whether we've achieved our goal or not. A stands for achievable. So they've got to be within your reach, but they've got to be challenging. I.e., don't set the impossible because that's just going to increase anxiety because they're never going to achieve it. But equally, don't set really easy tasks because that's just going to lead to boredom. So not too easy to achieve, but they've got to be challenging. R stands for recorded. We've got to monitor the progress and when our goals have been completed. And finally, T stands for time. We've got to set a time limit or a deadline. Otherwise, if the time just keeps drifting on and on, we're actually going to lose motivation. So this is why we wish to set goals and why it's important to have goal setting. And it is the number one way of doing it, SMART. Now, this is a very brief slide because sometimes a question can come up on what are the different types of goals that you can set. Well, of course, we can set SMART targets, and they're the number one way of doing it. But the different types of SMART targets we can set, here are performance goals, outcome goals, and process goals. And you just need to know a definition of each of these. So now use the actual term to make it easy for yourself. A performance goal is a goal directed towards the end performance. I've put an example like a gymnastics routine. What I mean by that is, as long as you get your performance right, your technique right, it doesn't have to be a routine, it can be the execution of a skill. So, you've set a goal in order towards perfecting the end performance. An outcome goal, an outcome being the posh word for the result, is the goal directed towards the end result, to win the game, to claim 3 points, something like that, to finish with my highest average yet, or something along those lines. And process goals are goals directed towards improvement of an individual's skill. Now, all three of these could be set as SMART targets, but you just need to know definition of each type. What is a performance goal? The goal directed towards your end performance. What is an outcome goal? Goal directed towards your end result. And the process goal directed towards the improvement of an individual's skill. So I think a question on this goal setting so far would be, what are the different types of goals and how can setting goals help the performer or improve performance? And finally, then, with all this in mind, we've also got, the ways of setting our goals. We can set out long-term goals, short-term goals, and even agreed goals. They're the three that, again, focusing on. So a long-term goal is a clear target to achieve. Now, that might be an Olympic gold medal. It might be the Premier League title, something like that. Something we're talking months or a year or 2 years down the line, something along that route. Now, the problem with a long-term goal is it's so far into the future that you can often lose motivation in terms of working towards it, or you could peak too early, and end up not being at your best for the actual event that you need to be good at. So it's important that we then do short-term goals that build to our long-term goal. So your long-term goal must be made up of short-term goals that build towards achieving the long-term goal. And these that provide regular opportunities for success, they increase motivation, and they control your anxiety. It's almost like a tick list of things that you need to achieve in order to achieve your long-term goal. And achieving one each week or each fortnight or each 3 weeks, something like that. But it's also really important that the goals are agreed as well. So the goals are set through agreement are much more effective. So you sitting down with your teammates or your coach are much more likely to achieve that goal because you're all working together and you've all had a contribution in say what that goal should be. So, look at the Team GB's women's hockey team. It was always their ambition to win gold. at Rio 2016, building on from the last Olympics and moving forwards. They all sat together, went on training camps, what they want to achieve in the next 4 years. But 4 years was the long-term goal. They had to have short-term goals in between that. How are you going to perform at Europeans, at Worlds, things like that? But they all agreed on it, and they all went and executed it. So that's an example of the different types of goals and why we want to use goal setting. Hope you found this video useful, folks.